Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to our podcast. Today I'm answering the question, what have I learned from grief? What lessons have I learned from the loss of my husband? So there are quite a number of things that I've learned through this journey. The first one being, I've learned to be single again. After having been married for a very long time, my identity became Mrs. And after the loss of my husband, I had to go back to being me. I had to find that girl that I was before I got married to my husband. And I'm now reliving that life. So with that comes a different form of independence. It is no longer Mrs., but I'm now a Miss, and there's just so much adjustment that comes with that. And there's also learning to be independent, to stand alone, and knowing that I now need to decide whatever decisions I make, whether good or bad, they still affect the outcome of whatever is bound to happen. So before, I would always consult, I would always say, this is what I was thinking, what are your thoughts? And I would get a different perspective to it. But now whatever I decide, I just go right ahead and do it. And then sometimes it backfires pretty badly, and sometimes it's very satisfying. So I found that girl that I was before my marriage, and that's the life I'm living now, later on in my life, in my older years. So yeah, I learned independence. And then I also discovered that, I learned that life is very short. That realization hit very hard because you just living your life not knowing or not anticipating something of that magnitude. But when it happens, then you learn that life is very short. Value people whilst they are alive. I've learned to appreciate people a little more than before, because you may wait and not have the chance to tell them they are special. I've also learned that it is important to appreciate people, not just the close people, not just the ones that are family, but just to live in the community as a person in a broader community or a bigger community. So this is where I've learned everybody can be family. You just treat people fairly, justly, and you just love people. So I've also learned that through grief or through loss. I've also learned what I'm doing now. I never saw myself doing this, but when I started writing my book, because that was my source of healing. When I was writing how I felt exactly, it helped me heal. And in that process, I learned a lot of things. I said, I should tell somebody my story. Someone should hear what has happened and how I'm dealing with it. So I learned through grief that whatever pain you have, use it to change someone's life. Use it to change your life as well. So I learned how to express myself better. The author in me came out because of grief, and now the content creator. So yeah, that's also what I learned through this loss. I also learned that you do not replace people that you lose through death. You can't replace those. I've got friends that have lost their children, and having other children will not necessarily replace the one that you lost. So even though people have gone on to have other children, they still struggle with the loss of their child. And simply put, it means that that child was very important, and they played a very significant part in their lives. Whether they lost them as a baby, whether they lost them years later, or whether they lost their child when they were already working, having other children will not necessarily replace the child that you'll have lost. They are a different person. They are not that child that you lost. So therefore you cannot replace them. And most parents quickly have other children just to try and cover up for that loss, or just try to move on. And like I said previously, you don't move on, you just move forward. So that child will not remain a distant memory, even though you have another. They just remain your child, or they just remain the guardian angel that keeps watching over you. I also learned how to do other things with my time. I realized that I've got so much time. And when I was a wife, I was busy with family things. I was busy with my marriage. I was busy with a lot of things. But after the loss of my husband, I'd realized that I have so much time. So I learned new hobbies. I started reading way more because I've got time. I started knitting. I started crocheting because I also have time. And I think I should just do a bit more, maybe start grief counseling, because I've got a bit of time on my hands. So that's also something that I learned from my loss, that you have extra time on your hands, or maybe it's keep busy so that you don't keep focusing on what has happened to you. And in the minute or the moment you try to be busy, you realize that you've got time. So it's something that people should consider, that when they have a loss, they should keep busy. Keeping busy will take your mind away from the loss that you've experienced, and it will take your mind off the self-pity, and that is very easy to fall into. And yeah, I also discovered you can travel the world. You are not limited by so many things, so you can discover new places, and also just spend a bit more time on things that make you laugh. I discovered that I had a very good loud laughing sound that's in me. I only discovered that after my loss, because there was so much mourning, there was so much wailing, that became the default emotion. But now I can laugh with other people, and loudly as well. So those are discoveries that I made because of the loss. And I've also discovered I'm such a loving person. I've allowed people into my space. Before it was occupied by my immediate family and maybe the extended family, but now there's room for other people. There's room for other people, just discovering that there's so much that I can do. So grief has taught me not to hold back, but to actually live loudly and happily too. So I've learned that even after loss, you can still smile, you can still laugh. And I've also learned one other very important thing, that you need to have a strong faith. You need to be deeply rooted in something, because you just find yourself in places where you do not want to be. So if you are deeply rooted, if you are deeply grounded, then you'll be able to focus on God. You focus on your spirituality, and you grow as a person. You find strength where you'd naturally crumble. So I think these are lessons that I learned through my loss. So thank you all so much for watching. Till next time. Bye.